a second if you want to share it on your Facebook.
I haven't seen it pop up yet. Let's see.
Excuse me.
Also, it's International Women's Day.
I was going to say that at the
Okay.
top. Unless you want to bring it up.
No, then I can give you. I'm proud of you for knowing that. And you're like, oh, I'm not a total idiot. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think for the party in the park,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just order Chick-fil-A, some Publix subs, get a bunch of like fruit, stuff like that. But I'm going to prep everything the night before, not
Okay.
like I did.
Right. Smart.
So, like all the extra food I'll prep the night before so we can just take it there and then we can order Costco pizza, pick that up, Chick-fil-A, and like, have that.
Friends, welcome to another edition of Common Ground. Morning Show Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gettlin.
I'm your other host, Rachel LaForce.
We are married. We are comedians. We do this every week live, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Oh, hold on here.
Pause.
There we go.
We did it. That's right. We've got, listen, that's what happens. We've got multiple streams going. We got all sorts of things.
We're good now?
Hey!
Is there a way you can mute just the...
Just show me on your phone.
See, this is what happens. We have the live going on in Facebook
Yeah.
on your laptop, and that's playing automatically through the TV.
That's why.
What's going, so I can't.
Okay.
If you want me to look at the comments, I don't know how else to do
Yeah, so then just mute the audio altogether from the computer. Yeah, okay.
I just imagined like a star, and then it just says teachable moments.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll just show you the thing on my phone.
Yeah, that's fine. Just show me on your phone. Guys, shout out to our engineer who's here every morning, Scotty Young,
So anyway,
keeping us looking good.
getting the kinks worked out. Anyway, so today is a very big day. It's a lot of milestones today because one, we are 1 year from when the whole world went crazy and we shut down
Wow.
due to coronavirus. It was exactly 1 year ago that my cousin Caitlin Snyder had her wedding. So shout out Caitlin.
At a lavender farm.
Happy anniversary.
They're having a baby.
Other than our wedding, I really think it will be the most memorable wedding of my lifetime because it was the last event we went to. The last thing Scotty was there too. The last thing we did, and then everything shut down. But it's also International Women's Day.
Yes, it is. And it's also Grandma Susie's birthday. My
Shout
mom.
out to my mother-in-law, Sue Painter.
It's her birthday.
You might be watching this live. And speaking of international women, a lot of hot controversy around Meghan Markle's interview on Oprah. So did you read anything? I know we didn't watch it, but
So I know I hesitated because I was like, we can't do a morning show about current events and not talk about it. But also, like, I don't have cable, so I didn't I didn't like dive in. But I at least wanted to mention it because, of course, like it was one of those things too where I'm like, did I even have to watch it? Like now, which of course I do. I think she's absolutely darling, and like, who doesn't love Oprah, you know? And also, we all know that like The Crown was out this year, and then there were like documentaries about The Crown, and like I watched it all. I think I've seen every documentary on Princess Diana that exists now. The biggest takeaway that I was thinking today, especially on International Women's Day, was like all of the media was like, is she a villain or is she right? You know, and it was like we couldn't just go.
Meghan, you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
That we could. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Not Princess Diana. Although we said the same thing about Princess Diana. It's like, first of all, you know, where they always say like there's only two types of stories, tragedy and comedy.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same thing in the news. Like when people get all upset about something, or even in politics, when people are like, can you believe this is happening? I'm like, yes, because it's happened 9 other times. It was just called something else.
Well, I will say that. So I watched some clips. And I don't have anything. I really have no opinion on the royals. I mean, honestly, it's like silly to me that we still.
Hold on. You have no opinion.
Let me rephrase. I have no opinion on Harry and Meghan specifically.
Okay, there we go.
I
was
think-
like,
That's impossible.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never.
I mean, the whole idea of like that we honor this like monarchy of England. Who gives a fuck? For like why would we care? I mean, I know we create our own pseudo royalty here in America. You know, a lot of people thought Trump was like royalty. A lot of people thought Obama was like royalty. I don't think anybody thinks Biden is like royalty.
No. Sorry, Joe.
But I don't know. It's like whatever. Let me say this too. I watched some clips. It seems like Harry and Meghan were treated very unfairly by the royal family. The thing that really stands out, a couple things that came up that people were talking about. So one, Meghan talked about having a lot of suicidal thoughts. And one thing I thought was good that people were saying is like we need to normalize talking about it.
Amen.
A lot of people feel very ashamed or just like uncomfortable. So I was like, that's a good point. If that helps bring some kind of awareness to be able to talk about those weird feelings and dark thoughts, that's great. The other thing that stood out was that
really quick, I just want to say something else on that because I also, and not that I want anyone to feel like the way that in that mindset when you're having suicidal thoughts. I don't ever want anyone. I'm so hormonal right now. I was like, I was about
way to
to
start
crying.
the morning, you know?
I was about to start crying talking about it. I don't want anyone to feel that way. But a lot of people do feel that way. Sometimes
Sure.
it's chemically induced. Sometimes it's trauma induced. There's all sorts of different reasons why we experience that. And we have this idea of what a depressed person is or who a suicidal person is. And our conversation around suicide is still rather hush-hush. And, you know, and we like revere folks who sadly have taken their lives. Like Anthony Bourdain is a perfect example. But we don't actually stop and go, okay, why don't we talk about these, you know,
Yeah.
like, because and sometimes the narrative is like, oh, it's selfish, or, you know, there's all these like really, really nasty, ill-informed narratives that exist. But I do think to have this beautiful, royal, successful woman
Yeah.
come out and talk about something so openly should not be underestimated. I mean, that is a major, major thing to happen. And I think we're also so attuned of like, okay, next, you know, like we're just constantly inundated with news. Yeah. But just to pause on that for a second of like, I mean, first of all, how brave and beautiful for her to share that because she didn't have to.
Sure.
And also, and I don't use brave of like, oh, she wore a bikini, you know what I mean? Like after having a baby, how brave. But
yeah, we really got to adjust what we consider brave.
You know?
That, like Meghan speaking about suicidal thoughts on camera and how like weirdly personal and insecure that must make her feel, that's brave. But you're right. Like going out in public in a bikini, you're not brave, dude. Did you run into a burning building and save someone? Then you're brave. That's bravery to me.
I know. Well, I don't think women are claiming it as brave. It's when we put that on them.
Sometimes.
Like, you know.
Oh, I don't think anybody. Yeah, that's true. I don't think anybody self-describes as brave.
Well, that was
it's other people calls her brave.
I'm gonna butcher her joke. But Chelsea Davison, who is a phenomenal comedic actress and a producer, she works on Lily Singh's late night show. She was the EP of David Spade's late night show. She was on the newest version of Mad TV. Very, very funny. And she had this bit about. She knew that she wanted to be an actress, but she also learned when she moved to LA, she also didn't know that she could add brave to her resume because, you know, she's maybe size 10, maybe.
Sure.
And,
Funny.
and everybody,
Yeah.
you know. So anyway.
Well, the other thing that was really not really surprising, just like, oof, geez, of course, is so I guess, and I'm paraphrasing because I didn't watch a lot of it. I just kind of looked at some clips. But Meghan said that their son wasn't allowed to have a royal title. Effectively because she is black, and so there would be like, they were concerned that her son's skin tone, I think the exact language was like his skin tone wouldn't be appropriate. So she said this to Oprah, and Oprah was like in stunned silence. And it just highlights like, yeah, maybe like royalty is dumb. Like, why would we honor this? What did they do? What did the House of Windsor do to deserve our respect? Nothing, as far as I'm concerned. Did they do anything? Do they help society? Do they contribute? Do they invent stuff? No. Make an app. If there was a royal app that was cool, maybe I would respect them.
That's really funny. Actually, that's very funny. No, I agree. And it's also like, I mean, but besides the, like, just, I don't want to be the white person anymore that's like, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that this is happening,
Yeah.
right? Because black and brown communities are like, why? Stop saying that. You should not be shocked. Like, nothing is changing. But I certainly would say I'm very disgusted by that. Is really, really low.
Well, and also,
but I'm not at all surprised. I mean, it's the royal family. It's like they, you know.
But also it's
they
like.
blame Diana's, like, you know, bulimia and everything, like, on her. And it's like, wait a minute, you tricked a 19-year-old girl into marrying a 30-year-old man who had an affair on her the entire time because you wouldn't let him actually marry the woman that he wanted to be married to.
But also,
and then you made her endure, like, and I'm not saying that Diana, like, we all have to take responsibility
Sure.
for ourselves. And I think by the time, which is what she did when she left, when she was finally like, I grew up in the public eye, I got my stuff together, and I was like, this is not where I need to be, and I need to leave, right? But it's like, they do that over and over and over again.
Well, the other thing too is like it's like, hey, read the room, royal family. All anybody wants to talk about these days for very
Yeah, why did they use it as a PR move?
That's what I was saying.
Now we have a black person in our family. Like you
Yeah,
would think
right?
as a PR manager, somebody'd be like, "Listen, I don't want to make this about race, but this is really good for us, okay?
Right,
Diversity is in."
Yeah, dude. Like,
Like-
wouldn't you think, like, listen, you know, we really recognize how beautiful it is to bring other cultures into our, but, you know, it just highlights the absurdity of the royals.
I know.
So-
and also like, and I've always been a fan of Harry. I think like as an intuitive, like reading Harry is like, he's a very just like sweet, like artistic, intuitive soul.
Do you remember when there was like a scandal where he was like caught naked in his hotel room in Vegas with some of his bros?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, Harry went to Vegas and partied. Ooh, it's like, yeah, dog. He's a handsome monarch in training. Like, what the fuck did you think? What, he's gonna go to Vegas and not party? Like, he didn't. What, did anybody die or overdose, or did they break anything? Oh, he was naked with other people, maybe doing drugs in a room in private. Okay, like what? Like,
I know. It's insane.
Prudes.
It's so stupid. Prudes.
yeah.
But yeah, I also think that that's really. I mean, he is Diana's son, though. I mean, there is something to that, and it's also interesting because I did not know so much about. And then we'll move on from the royals, but I didn't know how stifled Prince Charles was as a kid, and
Charles is the father of William and Harry.
correct.
Right.
And now he comes off as like fairly staunch, and now is married to Camilla, who he had a relationship with on and off.
Right.
I mean, they were really each other's first
Dude, how
love.
weird is that for Harry and William, right? Your stepmom is the lady that your dad was cheating on your mom with.
I mean, I see that part. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt also that like I'm sure they would have a lot of anger towards their dad, but I think growing up as a royal and seeing all of the fucked up things that happens, it's like,
Sure.
oh, you wanted to marry this woman originally.
Yeah.
Everybody said you couldn't.
Right. That's a good point.
You
yeah,
know,
they were.
it's not like, and I'm not making excuses.
And why didn't they want him to marry Camilla? What's wrong?
Just because like her like pedigree was not as well. The other
Again,
thing-
royals,
but
you guys are idiots.
But listen, the other thing was because she had boyfriends in the past, and so the really big push was like, listen, you're going to be king. We have to find you somebody who's like completely untouched, essentially. And so, you know, they picked a
Weird
19-year-old.
Right. They wanted a virgin, and how creepy and like.
And like,
just,
I don't think. I mean, sure, the virginity part, but I think it was like we don't need any scandal, so pick somebody who's completely untouched. And then they destroyed her anyway. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's the other thing. I'm like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
My royals.
Well, okay.
Okay.
So speaking of marriage and weddings and all that good stuff, so if there's one thing I know that you love,
Oh.
and when I say love, I mean loathe, bad TV
Oh no.
that focuses on shitty human behavior, right? Unscripted television that highlights. Now, maybe I'm being a little too harsh on this series I saw, but it's coming to Netflix on Wednesday. So, Scott, can you click that first link?
No, we're not going to play it up there. Remember?
No, I know, but it's an article about the show,
Oh,
and then I'm
okay.
gonna, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so here, read this headline here.
Fairy tale wedding or dream home? Couples have to choose in marriage or mortgage.
First thoughts.
Hilarious. Also, yeah, what's the tagline? The new Netflix show is a cross between Selling Sunset and Say I Do. Also, whoever picked the title for this is so proud of themselves.
What, with marriage or mortgage?
Yeah, let's see. First comes love, then comes marriage, ... Or is it mortgage? In an upcoming Netflix series, couples will be forced to decide between saying yes to the dress or to the nest. I hate everyone. As a copywriter, I'm like, I hate everyone. Premiering on March 10th, Marriage or Mortgage follows real estate agents Nicole Holmes and wedding planner Sarah Miller as they convince 10 couples in Nashville to make only one dream come true.
Okay, so
Here's what I actually like about it. For the average person that's around our age right now, that's choosing between getting married or their dream home, that's actually the most realistic,
Sure.
reality show of like, financially, if you're doing it yourself, you probably can't do both. Okay, my friends? So you got to pick. And also, to me, it's like, what would you rather be tied down to? A human or a house. I mean, that's the choice that you're making.
Well, here, hold on. Here, watch the trailer really quick. And then, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Smart decision to make. But
Evan, you can just say it. Just say it. Just let it out.
I want our wedding to be the best wedding of all the ones that we've been to.
Nerds.
We want to start a family soon.
We need more space.
If we buy a house, it could be years before we can afford the wedding we've always wanted.
We could do both.
No, we can't.
That's where we come in. Owning a house is the all-American dream. I'm a real estate agent. I can make that dream come true. This is perfect. Yeah. The best part about being a wedding planner is being able to create this.
Okay, all right.
You
It's
get
2
it.
minutes, and
You get
who's
it.
got that kind of time? Here's what I have to say.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
Is somebody,
So they.
yeah, I can explain it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so the whole thing is that they've got the wedding planner there, and then they've got the real estate agent. So the real estate agent takes them out and shows them all these houses
Yeah.
and figures out something so it's like they find their perfect home that they could afford.
Right.
The wedding planner helps them plan this perfect wedding, and then at the end, they have to decide which one they want.
Right.
Right.
Yep. They can
As-
only pick one of the two.
Right. As somebody who's had a wedding, pick the house.
Yeah.
I
Sure, dude.
I could not tell you, and I understand. Listen, I love ceremony. I love a good event. Okay, like if you come to my home, there's always like fresh fruit and fresh flowers. Like, you know,
That is a fact.
like the boys are always like, "Do we need?" Alex is always like, "We don't live in a museum." I hear that in my house all the time. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't live in a museum.
Killer impression.
Thank you. And so I like creature comforts. I like things to look nice. So I understand this need for dream weddings, but as somebody who got married during COVID and went from, I mean, I don't even know, like a dream wedding. Like, I guess every time I even think about it, I'm like, the thought of spending $100,000
Yeah.
on a event where people are going to hate what you do no matter what.
Yeah.
Is so silly to me. Even if like money is not like it's free money or whatever, like is so just insignificant. And I think it's hard for people who haven't been married yet, especially folks that are like, no, I have this dream wedding. And it's like, it's just like anything else where you build it up and you think it's going to be this thing and then
Yeah.
it's done and you're like, that was it? That was the whole thing?
I will say our wedding, we've talked about it at length on this show, but it was like 22 people or something. Our closest friends and family out in the desert at a cool villa. It was perfect. The only thing I'm a little bummed we didn't get to have like the big dance floor, which is always like a fun time, especially like, with my people, they put us up on the chair and dances around. I do miss
Those are
that.
Jews. Jews do that.
Yeah. Shalom.
No, but that's the other thing. I've got a friend who is getting married in 2022, and she was talking about kind of like different options and what to do. And I was like, plan for exactly what you want, certainly. But also know at the end of the day goes by like this. Things go wrong. Things don't work out. And ultimately, it's like whatever happens is your experience. That's really what you're taking away. It's like it gets to be your experience. And also, like, there's so much emphasis that's put on this one day.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was like, I'm certainly bummed. I think we made the best of what we were able to.
To your credit, you very wisely realized, yeah, I'm going to barely be able to connect with the 22 people at this small wedding and have it be like enough. Now imagine 200 people.
Well,
And
and that's the thing. I think a lot of people have these big weddings, not for themselves, but so other people can be like, oh my God, aren't they so perfect? They have everything. Look at this perfect wedding. Like, that's just not me. It was like at our dinner, I stood up and probably spent way too much time going around to each person at the table and being like, this is why you're here. This is why I love you. Thank you so much. And like, for me, a wedding is truly about love and about our connection and the ceremony of it. So I loved that there was only this small group of people, but I also won't lie to you. I feel like I've already begun to plan like our 5-year vow renewal because it'll be like, no more COVID. Everybody can come.
But that's different because then we don't have to worry about anything other than hanging out.
But that's what I mean, where it's almost like I wish I could say that to people like on your wedding, like just do it small, make it, if that's your personality. I mean, some people are very like showy, they like to do so, but it's like do something small, be there with the people you love, make it about real, true love.
Well,
And then throw a giant party later where like people can show up and mingle
Exactly.
and hang out.
And also, then you can enjoy the party. You're not going to be able to enjoy the party if it's on your actual wedding day. But the thing for me is, like, if you have the money and the resources to have a big party, great. But if you're choosing between a down payment on a home and a party, dude, why? Listen, I don't wish ill on anybody.
Dumb
but,
or dumbest.
but
That's what they could
Yeah,
call
but
this
you
show.
deserve to lose if you spend the money on a party over a house. It just, I mean, listen, it's television. The one guy was like, I want our wedding to be the best one of all of our wedding friends. It's like, boo, boring. Oh, we forgot to bring our things. Remember the?
Oh yeah, our little clappers.
We went to a drive-in comedy show this weekend. Shout out to our friend Anthony Amarello, very funny comic. He hooked us up with tickets, and it was cool. You know, it was fun to go and enjoy, support our friend at a drive-in event. But because it's in a residential neighborhood, you know, some of these drive-in comedy shows, they have you honk your horn when you want to show support. Like, oh, that was a great joke. But we can't do that in this neighborhood because it was, like, residential. So they gave us these little clappers. They're like these plastic hands that you just, like, wave outside of your car. And we wanted to make it a thing on the show where whenever we want to, like, boo, we wave them. But, you know.
We can bring it back.
Yeah.
I also, when they handed them to us, I was like immediately annoyed. Like I was like, this is terrible. And now I feel like I want one all of the time. Just of like, you know, nope, I'm speaking now. I think it comes from, it's still like the layover from watching John Adams. Like there's something very like old
Good day,
school
sir.
to me, just about being like, no, you know, like ringing of the bell, but it's just this like very comedic clappy hand, you know?
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, so last question then we'll move on from this. Do you want to watch this show?
No.
No interest.
No.
I don't either. I mean, and I guess I did hype it up like it was it's not toxic.
Because the people, you want to know why?
Because
And
they're
I-
boring. Yeah, because they're super boring.
Well, the people they choose, it's also, and maybe it's just from like working in television and stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I know why they chose each of these couples. I don't actually believe these people because they know in order to get on the show, there is an element of performance, even if you're like not
yeah.
an actor.
Right.
So you have like super performative people. And, you know, like not to like let my spirituality show, but I'm like, give me a show about people that are actually going through something
Sure.
or trying to learn or change or grow. Like that's captivating.
Right, like a documentary about child molesters or something like that you always want to watch in our house
I'm
for
just
some
saying,
reason.
if you're not watching Allen versus Pharaoh about the Woody Allen on HBO, watch
See,
it.
you and I like some unscripted. Are documentaries considered unscripted? Is that how the?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're considered documentaries. It's like separate, but yes.
So some of the non-scripted television genre.
Correct.
You and I have like we both love like History 101, Explained. You know, there was one we were watching about. It was thinking about like different ways spies use their technology and stuff. Those are like, oh, we both enjoy that. And then you veer off into like Sad Zone. And it's like, why would I want to watch about more people getting molested and awful things that have happened to children? It's like between that and then the gymnast girls and Larry Nassar. It's like, God,
I know, but I understand if like if you're just like, oh, it's a thing about like girls getting sexually assaulted. I understand it's like, oh, why would I want to watch that?
I don't downplay its importance in society that we're aware of it.
Right.
I understand
so that's why I'm saying I think a documentary about the one of Larry Nassar. So now, if you're not familiar, Larry Nassar was the essentially the doctor for Michigan State University for their gymnastics team, multiple like rec leagues in Michigan, and for the United States Olympic team. And had been sexually assaulting girls sexually abusing them rather for years and years and years. Saw over like had access to over like 6,000 girls,
Yep.
you know, a season. And multiple adults knew that it was going on, blamed these children, and it just kept going and just kept going. And he's serving jail time. But it's again, just like, to me, it's a reminder, and like it is something that people need to watch and be aware of, because as adults, it's so easy to be like, well, that's insane. That's preposterous. And it's like, no, it's not. Predators
No.
hang in plain sight all the time.
I'm aware of that. And I think it's great that Netflix is putting these documentaries out to raise awareness about these
That
very
one's on
important
HBO.
things. Or HBO, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that in our house, I don't need evil things. And if it's like, get it out of here. It's
Well, yeah, you say that, but then you'll watch YouTube videos of people like getting in fights outside of Ubers or like,
that's true.
you know, so don't
Well, yeah,
act as
that's-
though you're just above
That is fair.
Disturbing human behavior, okay?
Yeah, I guess it's just that
You were just attracted to a different side of it.
something about I didn't mind the Ted Bundy documentary as much. Something about like people who abuse children. It's like really hard for me to like hear about
it's
it.
really vile.
Well, this is uplifting morning talk show.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
So anyway, so we're done with that. So a
We're
big
done with it. We're moving on.
good day, Seth. Yeah.
Good day, sir.
Dude, watch John Adams on HBO. There's a lot of these weird side angle shots they did, which was sort of odd. But
Yeah, if anybody knows the cinematographer on that, get at me. I have so many questions.
but
It's
right?
just in the beginning.
God, what do you
yeah.
think? You watched it with us.
Well, I didn't notice all the side shots until you pointed it out.
Yeah,
And I
Rachel's-
was like, oh my god, there are a lot of them.
Well, it was just so weird. Like I noticed in the very beginning, and I'm like, well, that's an interesting choice. Because sometimes, like, you'll shoot something from afar so that you can, like, you know, basically without telling the audience, like, this is the setting, then
Yeah.
you show them the setting, right? Or, like, if you want us to know that, like, a character's really experiencing something very, like, you know, in depth, you'll do a close-on shot so I can see their face doing the work. Like,
Yeah.
that's what cinematography is you're
Sure.
basically telling the story through cinema, right? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to learn here.
Yeah, I don't know, but what I do want to talk about. Okay, so there's been all this like, you know, when you see stuff that everybody's buzzing about, and it's just like I feel like no one really has a strong opinion on this. We're just talking about things because there's nothing to talk about, and the Dr. Seuss thing is definitely like that's like the most recent one. I'm like nobody. This is not a story. We're making it. So to recap,
Well, yeah, you got to tell everybody what the
if
story
you're not
is.
aware, so the Dr. Seuss Foundation or estate, whoever controls Dr. Seuss's literary work, they have removed 6 books from publication because there's certain things in the books they felt were like racially insensitive. Some of them involve like people of Asian and African descent, looking in like stereotypical. Like one is like an Asian, I think he's Chinese, and he has like one of those triangle hats, slanted eyes, and chopsticks. The other one's like a African person with like a big bull ring in his nose, and you know they're very cartoonish images. Okay, so the Dr. Seuss estate felt like, hey, it's 2021. These aren't so culturally sensitive anymore. We're gonna remove these, which I thought, okay, whatever. I looked at the images. I didn't find them that offensive. I just, you know, but
Well,
what?
also keep in mind, you're not of either of those descents. that
I
have
understand
been,
that, but
you know.
but it wasn't like, you know, it doesn't matter either way. But I'm like, whatever, fine, take it out. And then like, it's always so funny how like everything is so politicized now, and I can always tell when like all the conservative commentators were like losing their minds, like this is cancel culture, they're gonna ruin it, and then like the left-leaning people are like, no, this is Brave by Dr. Seuss. And it's like neither one of these is relevant. You know why? Because nobody the only reason you really should remove these things, I think, and I don't care if Dr. Seuss removed it or the foundation, but really it's for one of 2 reasons. Either A, you feel like the content is actively hurting people right now, like someone of that background or group or whatever is feeling less than or hurt by it, etc., or you're afraid that it's teaching the future generations to be hateful or ignorant or uninformed, whatever. Neither one of those is happening because these books are so obscure. Like the ones they removed, nobody was reading them anyway. And now, because it's this fake controversy, people are the books on eBay were selling for thousands of dollars a piece. So what it did is it just like makes a new interest in a thing that nobody was keeping tabs on anyway.
Right. That's what's called that's called drama. That's what that is. That happens all the time. I do think
I have a theory, but finish.
no, because then if I start talking, you're not going to hear me. You're going to wait till you get to say your thing. So
No, I'm
say
not.
your thing.
Say your thing. I'm gonna pause and listen intently.
I don't know why we have not. Here is why the conservative part of it drives me crazy, which is white conservatives have not been canceled. Like when they're always like, well, if they take this away, what's next? And it's like, nothing. You guys are all still fine. You're all in positions of power. You're still at the helm of the ship when it comes to power and money and politics. So to me, it always feels like this. It feels let me finish. It's so clear that it's about fear and nothing else. It's not actually about what you feel is wrong or what you feel is right or that it's going against your faith. To me, to make such large ta-das about things that don't actually affect you. And also your inability, if you're really a person of faith and somebody who is like, treat other people the way they want to be treated, et cetera, all of these kind of values. And yet you can't recognize that your fellow, Asian American or your fellow African American might go, hey, just a gentle reminder, we have years and years and years, hundreds and hundreds of years of being oppressed and being stereotyped. It's 2021. There's no need for these to be in publication. That you're not able to go, I concur. And then we just move on.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying...
I know. I'm not asking. I'm not talking to you. I'm telling you my opinion.
Okay.
And I'm saying that's where I get frustrated. Now, I also understand why folks that do reside on the right get very frustrated with folks on the left because it does feel like you can't, it's like, gosh, well, you can't say anything now. And I understand that as well because there's no balance. We're not allowing for nuance, which is what I say all the time until I'm blue in the face. We don't allow for balance. We don't allow for things to be multifaceted. But I do agree with you of what you're saying, which was, okay, if they're no longer relevant and or we have decided, right, we've moved on as a culture from 1930 when these books were made or whatever it was, definitely between the 20s and the 40s. I think the 30s.
Yeah, Scott, what'd you think Dr. Seuss was some like super woke
right. Well, I mean, but that's
children's
the other
author?
thing when we go after people for things that happened 20 years ago and it's like, oh, you're mad that they weren't the soothsayer in the 60s to go, oh, you know what? In 30 years from now, I'm going to get desecrated for this thing.
But
Yeah,
can
it
I
was like the 30s through the 50s.
Right.
Yeah,
But
which
can
is
I-
when, I mean,
Almost
even...
into the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, even, like Disney and like, all of those, we were even seeing like animal cartoons that were, if they were portrayed as black, they were in blackface, like they're,
Right.
minstrel shows, all of these things that culturally at the time, whether we thought that they were okay or not, they were socially acceptable.
So, are you still going or can I comment?
No, I guess, but that's why I asked you to comment before so that I could go on a walk here.
That's so funny.
Just look at the first book by Dr. Seuss. Can you guys read
No,
it?
Is it
what's-
called The Little Boners? What does that say?
It's just the pocketbook of boners.
What does that say? Wait, what does the description say? The pocket, well, scroll up, Scott, so I can see it better.
Oh wait, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Here, I'll just look on
Yeah, let's see here. All right. The Pocketbook of Boners is a book by
Zoom in.
Dr. Seuss, originally published as 4 separate books from 1931 to 1932 what's the premise though? Does it say here?
Is this one of the best-selling paperback books of World War II?
But what's the
Oh,
It's short jokes and humorous observations, with most being no more than 4 lines long.
I don't think it's about penises.
Well, I think just a boner was
It-
something that must
it
have
says
been like,
At the time it's writing, the term boner was not commonly used to mean an erection with sexual connotation, but rather as a term meaning silly mistake.
yeah, which is also why we call idiots. It's
Hey,
like, well,
boner.
that was a boner thing to do.
Yeah.
I think boner is a word we should use more often. I think it's all encompassing.
I do like boner. It's harmless. It's fun. Biden says a lot of boner statements. Trump definitely did, But finish. I just wanted to comment on one
Go
thing.
ahead.
But so I disagree with you on an extent. I think we're saying different things.
Shocker.
I really believe that conservatives are actively being silenced and quote unquote canceled because it's not that like they're right and left and liberals are wrong. It's that liberals have way more power in mainstream media, academia, and politics right
But we
now.
say that, and then,
Can I finish?
well, no, because I already started talking. I just tell the truth. You know what I mean?
What-
Well, no, just I'm saying I hear that argument, but it's also like we saw the insurgence of Trump and how much power was there.
Mhm.
So it's just that these power bases lie in different places.
I understand that. All I'm saying here is that cancel culture is a real thing. This is not an example of it, and it's very stupid for conservative commentators to burn any sort of legitimacy they have, making a fuss over like cancel culture isn't a thing if you're canceling something that wasn't even part of the culture to begin with. Like if these were like mainstream things that were popular and had like relevancy right now, and there was an outcry,
Yeah,
excuse
clear
me,
your throat.
and there was like an outcry from the public to get rid of it, that's cancel culture. The Dr. Seuss Foundation just being like, hey, we looked at these books from like a long time ago, thought it's time to get rid of them.
Sure, I hear that point.
That's what I'm saying.
I hear that point.
And so let me just finish this
I know,
one.
and then I'm holding my spot.
You need your clapper thing.
Yeah, I do. See,
But what it's done, this is the part that's interested me the most. What it's done is it's like kickstarted this new interest in these books. Like everybody's Googling them now, trying to find like what were the images and trying to buy them because
well,
they're
of course, because we're also so conditioned now. Like something's in the news, I must know everything about it and have 9 different opinions.
But it's also more so like, oh, we don't think this is good for you. Of course we're going to look at it. So on that note, I think a trend is starting. I really think this is a new thing. We saw the Muppets have their, and I'm not saying it's bad to be like, we need to be culturally aware, but it definitely is like there's an ulterior motive here to like gin up interest in things that are not so relevant right now. So, Scott, can you click on that link up there, the one that's the purple? Yeah, that one right there. So, check this out. Turner Classic Movies, which is a channel you're familiar. Yeah, they show old movies. So they have 18 films they've labeled as quote unquote problematic that they're going to be showing one at a time with a disclaimer at the top to, so some of them are popular films like Gone with the Wind.
Sure.
And Breakfast at Tiffany's. I don't know what the issue is with Breakfast at Tiffany's, but there's all these films on this
I don't
list.
know. She was a sex worker. We weren't,
I guess,
categorizing
but like,
her correctly.
scroll down, Scott, and see if we can. So I think it has the list of the films somewhere down there. And it's like I was looking at these, like I've never even heard of most of these movies.
Well, I've heard of Gone with the Wind, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Rope, I don't know, 4 Feathers, I don't know, Woman of the Year, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, I know, The Jazz Singer, I know, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Stagecoach, I know, Tarzan, My Fair Lady, Psycho? Yeah, okay, The Children's Hour, I know, and Dragon Seed.
But again,
Interesting.
so listen, I'm sure there is some level of like, hey, we want to like be culturally sensitive, but for sure, Turner Classic Movies is like, hey, we could probably get people to tune in and watch these films again if we tell them.
Why would you not? It's great PR.
Like, wouldn't it be like, imagine if like one of us, right? We had like a comedy special from 10 years ago, and it's like, you know what? I looked back at my jokes; they're not appropriate anymore. I'm gonna re-release it with a disclaimer. If you want to, like, it's a new way to just get like buzz for yourself.
Yeah, why not? I mean, listen, if the media is going to be absolute morons, that's the other problem to me, because even the language is not correct. Problematic,
What does
that's
that
up
mean?
for debate. It doesn't mean anything, and I've been wanting to talk about this more and more on my Instagram.
You know what's problematic? My car battery. It shut down on me on Saturday.
That's true. But I think, something that I've been talking more and more about, and there's a lot of black leaders that have already been, this is not anything new, but wanting to kind of give my remix on it, is the difference between cancel culture and accountability, which we talked about this a little bit last week.
Yeah.
Where I was like, there's a difference between canceling everything and going after everyone and holding people accountable. To me, the Dr. Seuss Foundation coming out and being like, hey, we're going to take these out of publication is just holding themselves accountable.
Yeah.
This is no longer appropriate. We've evolved past this. Dr. Seuss has a long, collection of things. We want to uphold this brand in the light that Dr. Seuss is. It's family friendly. It's educational. And so it doesn't match with where we are anymore. We're taking it out. That's accountability.
Right.
It's the same thing if Turner Classic Movies was like, hey, these are classic films, but we also know that they're no longer, we don't want to be putting them out there. We don't want to put out Gone with the Wind out there anymore. And just
But
also,
that's not even what they're saying. They're putting it out.
I know. I'm not agreeing with them. I'm giving
Okay.
you my take of what is not PR and is about creating and shifting over our culture as we progress.
Sure.
Because that's the other thing where it was like, conservatives where it's like, well, that's history. And it's like, we're not asking you to rewrite history. We're
Right.
asking you to participate in the history that exists now. And now you live in 2021. And, we are continually on the fight for equal rights for all people. There is language we no longer deem appropriate.
Yeah.
In the same way, it's like, there's a reason why I'm trying to think of some ridiculous language or like boners. There's a reason why that doesn't mean silly mistake anymore, because language evolves.
Right.
And it's like the inability for people that it has to be politicized, that it has to be red team, blue team, rather than accountability. We have moved on, and everything doesn't have to be a conversation. But of course it does, because we have a 24-hour news cycle that's privately funded. And so, of course, everything has to
But-
be,
but
you know.
my thing is, I just get angry because cancel culture is a real thing that we should be concerned about in the right context. This is not it. Like, to your point, that's not
But
an.
even cancel culture, I mean, so let me ask you this then. So what is your, and I just want to make sure we have time to get to President Joe Boner's
We'll do that next.
bullshit. Okay, I just want to make sure we get to it. But tell me
President Boner. That's what President.
that's what I'm going to call him, President Boner. He's such a fucking boner, dude.
Kind
I
of
can't-
harmless, but just a.
I mean,
doof.
listen, better than Trump. I'm not here for Trump. We know that. I've moved on. But just what a boner of a dude. And I'll tell you, they've already blown it for the midterms. And I'm just like, guys, we're all going to go back to sitting in our own shit because politics is, you know, what. Anyway. Tell me, what is your definition of cancel culture?
Cancel culture, this to me, and I guess it's up for debate, but this is my interpretation of cancel culture.
And that's all I'm asking for.
Cancel culture would be like if I put out something, a podcast, a movie, a script, whatever, and then the sentiment in the general public says, we want this canceled by Alex Gettlin because he is problematic. So like the mob, rather, the group, the internet, Twitter, wants me shut down, blocked, removed because they think that my views or art or whatever are a problem.
Okay.
Cancel culture is not, and again, it's because it's something relevant that's happening right now. Cancel culture is not something from the past that isn't in the zeitgeist right now being removed by the organization that controls it. That's not cancel culture.
So then by your definition, and I'm not being contrary, I'm asking.
Yeah.
So by your definition, then cancel culture is something that is of relevant culture.
Cancel culture is
Happening in the now, is present.
correct. It's something, it's a combination. A great example, I believe, is like the Gina Carano situation. That was the woman who was fired by Disney because she has outwardly conservative views. Why she was fired is debatable. And I'm not like I'm not a conservative. I don't even like, I mean, I do listen to a lot of conservative podcasters, but I also listen to liberal podcasters because I want to hear what both people are talking about. I like getting both sides, and mostly libertarian podcasters because that's like my personal jam. But what's that look for?
It's fine.
I will say, I really thought about this if I identify as a libertarian, and the only reason I don't say that I am is
I think you're way more conservative than you give yourself credit for.
that's not true because I'm absolutely against the decriminalization of drugs. I'm actually it depends what you define as conservative because my biggest issues that I want to see changed in this country is a massive reform of our criminal justice system, specifically around how we handle the drug war and these ridiculous neoconservative things that the Bush era got us into with these foreign wars that we keep like dumping ourselves into. So, and I also am not socially conservative. I don't have any like, we need family values. And so I'm like, do what you want, man. Try to be a good person. I think 2 parents are better than 1 for a kid, but it could be 2 moms, 2 dads, 2 whatevers. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I just think children, I think, function better with a 2-parent household. So what do you
Well,
think's conservative about me?
Two
Sorry.
parents, yes, but engaged parents. You can have somebody who's got 16 parents and
I
nobody
agree.
cares.
I was
So
only
I think-
referencing like.
I know. I'm just
yeah.
saying. I think it's important to more be like. It's really important for kids to grow up in a house that has like full support because there could be a mom who's like, "Listen, I'm 40. If I don't have a baby now, it's not going to happen. I want to," and that she's got a nice like supporter kind of village around her to help raise this baby. And then in turn, I'm like, okay, well that could,
This will transition us into this Biden thing to talk about the stimulus package. This is why. So I don't identify at all as a conservative. I think sometimes I can get confused as one.
Well, I guess I share that because of this view of like cancel culture. Because I mean, I'm not dissuading and saying that it's not real, but to me, it's more of a mob mentality.
Right.
It's we're paying way too much attention to these mobs rather than having and like really creating a conversation around accountability.
So, with that, right, the reason that I no longer identify as a liberal or on the left is because what that has become, at least right now in this era, is a like unruly mob that just looks for problems. And there are problems in the world that we should fix.
But that's also to say that's the same thing of like I also don't say all conservatives because that's not
Sure.
necessarily true.
But in general,
So it's the same thing about saying like all people on the left. It's like I actually think the majority of our country is centrist.
Yeah.
But that's not interesting.
you know what the real problem is, I think, I've thought about this quite at length, is that we have, I don't know if it's the media's fault or just us or social media, whatever, but we have created a society where your political identity is that it is it's your identity. People feel so connected now to it's when you are against in a lot of ways like a political movement. For folks, it's like you're saying that you're against everything that they are at their core.
Well, because we've introduced emotionality into them.
But that's
And
absurd.
so, yes and no. I think what we have done, what we've created is absurd, yes. But what's interesting to me is a culture who doesn't value or talk about emotions. Our emotions are used against us
Sure.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
Why you buy things, you'll watch an ad, it's going to make you feel a certain way. It's playing to your emotion. That's why you decide you want something. People don't buy things out of necessity. Most of the time, people buy something because it makes them feel a certain way. It's the exact same thing of like, I said this when I was still working at the restaurant, so it must have been before COVID really got shut down. But when I was watching the news, nobody even knew what COVID was yet.
Mhm.
All of the writing was in red
Yeah.
Goosebumps font, like the Goosebumps books, okay?
Right.
And all of it was scary imaging. I'm like, so we don't even know what this is yet. And you're already wanting to inflict fear based on, now most people will watch something and not pick up, oh, I'm already being told what it is. It's not in basic font. It's
Sure.
not giving you, they're already incepting you and telling you how to feel about something.
Yeah.
So, you know, I understand why we have gotten to this place. And I understand, and that's why I'm also like, pay attention to your feelings. When you learn where they come from, when you learn why you feel a certain way, and you teach yourself your own emotional discernment, then you can go through the world, you can watch all of this news, and you can pick and choose what is real for you
Yeah.
and what isn't. And you know, and then you don't feel as a part of it because you realize like it's all just kind of, we're all just kind of cogs in the wheel in a sense. And I don't mean to like downplay our significance in the world and whatever, but like also we're so insignificant.
So you think I am a conservative to an extent because I have worries about the mob mentality of cancel culture?
I guess plainly yes.
Sure, okay.
I'm not labeling it as good or bad. I'm simply wanting to note of like that tends to be more of a conservative
Concern?
a concern. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think having optics of paying attention to what's going on around us is important. But what's more important is the language in which you use around it. Even the term cancel culture is like so like visceral, and I mean, I don't know.
What it effectively is saying, and this is why, I mean, I guess I am a libertarian. I just don't like identifying as anything because I feel like once you say I'm a this or a that, it just tacks on all these connotations that people gin up about you.
Yeah,
And-
but also people are going to label you whatever they want anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, at this point, I'm also just accepting of like, I have my identifiers. I know how I identify. And you can decide, like, there was the quote of like, the version you have of me in your head is not my responsibility.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a good
You know?
That's a good quote. What I'm saying is, and the conservative movement has done this many times in the past. I just see it less today. Effectively, what it becomes is that one group who has more control in the cultural narrative decides we think this is okay and this is not, and so therefore we want this thing that we have decided that's not okay to not be allowed to exist anymore. And what I'm saying is the free market should decide. You shouldn't tell any movement that tells adults that they know better than them about like what they're almost with anything. I don't think you should tell adults you know better than them, like that they can and can't do this on virtually anything at all. So it's like,
But what if something is deemed like harmful?
By who? What? That's
So, okay.
but it's so vague. We call everything harmful
okay,
now.
Chill out. But I'm saying that's easy to say, but like, what if, going back, and I'm not saying this to be contrarian, I'm really throwing this on the table of like, well, we had debates if slavery was harmful. I mean, that's so it's like, I do think, I hear what you're saying, but that's why nuance is important. That's why I agree with you that these identifiers, that these labels, because there are really major things. I understand the annoyance of mob mentality of like, well, you can't say this, well, you can't say this. Now there's 9 different terms because I identify this way. It's like, okay, your identifier, but are there a group of people that are identifying that way? Right. Like, I think we need to begin to educate ourselves more and more on gender identities, not being so scared of it. This is not a new thing. These people have existed for many, many years, always in hiding. Like, we don't have to be scared of them. Let's have a bigger conversation. I'm just using that as one example, okay? But the other thing is, it's like there are things that collectively we should be able to look at and say, that is harmful, that is a problem, right? And if we can't do that together and do it in a way that's like has an open conversation, then to me that's not cancel. I mean, I don't know. It's just like if somebody, is outwardly like hateful, like we can't all decide, especially folks that are like, oh, it's because I have like family values. I'm like, yeah, I was born on a pew, baby. Like I grew up going to church. You mean to tell me that you can't look at some of this behavior and tell me that that's harmful? Then I don't know what church you were going to.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about, like, I don't, with the gender stuff, like, I don't care about that. Do whatever you want.
No, I know, but I'm just talking about, these are things that cancel culture goes after. Because when the left-hand side tends to be like, we need to pay attention to these voices, we need to include these voices, then a lot of that feedback where this tension comes from, and we got to move on, we got to get to the boner thing. But, and then the more conservatives tend to then be like, well, if we accept all of this, then they're going to take everything.
Yeah, I'm not referring to any of that. I'm only saying, that's a completely different topic. I'm literally only saying that the idea that, like, the collective mass of the majority of who controls the social narrative says this is okay to listen to, read, watch, whatever, and this is not. I don't have any opinion, or I don't have any qualms with like, let's give more light to and amplify these voices. That's great. I'm saying,
I guess to me they lay on top of each other. They don't,
because what they're saying is they want to say we need to ban this from society. We need to say this is not allowed anymore.
Right, but okay, then give me an example, because what I'm saying is normally what I'm talking about goes into what we decide is banned or otherwise.
Like when they want to say people, when there's a push to remove people who have dissenting opinions from social media platforms, get them kicked off projects, get them barred from work. That's what I'm saying. It's like when we're going to go in circles here, because your number one concern, it seems, is to break down what you probably consider to be the ignorance of conservative-leaning views towards certain marginalized groups.
It's not ignorance. To me, this is a multifaceted conversation. And folks who have values in certain things, like, I'm not going to come for you if you're like, I don't believe that, I believe that abortion is wrong because I believe that you're killing a baby, and if God wanted that baby, that's a faith-based value. Now, I don't fully agree with you. I don't think it's that easy and that nuanced.
I have a better way to explain it now. I thought it was.
But I understand that. Now, for somebody to say that they don't think that Trump's language is harmful to large groups of people, that I'm like, but okay, so you got to tell me more about that. I don't think that's true. We know that it's harmful because he's it's all about instigating something. We all know what an instigator is. We don't have to be on the same page to know what an instigator is. It's a child that keeps going, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, until finally you hit them, and then the kid's in trouble. Well, it wasn't the kid's fault. It was the instigator's fault, right? So there's all of these things that what I'm saying is I feel like these debates between left or right is the ingredients that's going into what we decide is cancel culture. So I hear what you're saying. You're talking about the framework of cancel culture, if I'm hearing you correctly.
It's a real thing, and when we call things that aren't cancel, when they gin up fake controversy around stuff that is not cancel culture, it completely ruins the validity. Yeah.
I agree.
So here's like another example that I see that I'm like, and on the other side, I'm like, this is ridiculous, dude. Is that, a lot of people on the left who are like, and I say people, I mean like the media voices and the blue check marks on the internet and stuff who dictate a lot of the narrative, right? There's all this, in my opinion, ridiculous fear of QAnon, that the QAnon people are, there's, I don't know if you knew this, but there's still like the National Guard at the Capitol because they keep saying that, on March 4th, there was supposed to be like a new insurrection that never happened. And there's all this like nonsense about like the QAnon militant groups and et cetera and this and that. And the reason I know that's bullshit is because I'm sure there are fringes of the internet where certain people talk about QAnon and have insane ideas, right? But is that a real threat to our society? In my opinion, absolutely not. And it's used as a weapon the same way that after 9/11, the Bush administration put on all these new restrictions on us, be like, we got to fear this. It's just the people on the left now are using this QAnon crap to try and add more restrictions on social media groups and things like that, because there's not a single leader of QAnon. There's no person you can identify that's like, they're the person stoking all this controversy. On top of that, if you type hashtag QAnon into all the social media platforms, it doesn't let you search for it. They even flag it saying this is a problematic search term. And there's all this language around it. So there's like, it's not a movement anymore. It's a thing that it's like the Antifa thing. Who's the leader of Antifa? Where is their organization? It's like there's fringe people we see online, and then it makes everybody be like, that's it. There they are. Where are they? There's some fucking idiot with pink hair threw a Molotov cocktail in a building. Yeah, that person is a problem. But there's not this, we just love to latch onto these like,
Well, we don't. That's the perfect example of there always has to be a boogeyman. Because if I can make you afraid of something, I can make you loyal to something. Let me finish, please. If I can make you afraid of something, I can make you loyal to something. And
it's a good quote. Did you come up with that?
Yes. I'm brilliant. That
Boo.
is boo. That's why we need those clappers.
Good day, sir. No, that's a really good quote. If you can make someone afraid of something, you can make them loyal to something.
And I think it's also, again, that's emotionality. Fear these people.
Yeah.
You don't. These people are coming for you. They're bad, and that's why, again, to me, it's not about like left is right and the wrong is left is correct and the right is wrong. To me, this is a very complex situation. We've also had years and years and years of very, very complex conversations around, and also, again, it's like there are millions and millions of people who lead their lives very differently. We also see how wealth is distributed completely differently, exposure, travel. Everybody's experiencing their own reality. So to ask everybody, to even begin to have a conversation about accountability, asking people what they really think and believe, it's like, for the most part, there are certainly groups of people that are generated around hate, certainly. But those groups are much more small and in between than folks who, do want to take care of their neighbors or, whatever. But when you're being projected to all day, every day, these people are coming for you. Of course people cling to things, especially right now. People, I know we're kind of starting to come out to the other side of COVID, and I think people are starting to kind of have a little bit of hope. We're kind of seeing the other side, et cetera. But it's like, especially, we were subjected to so much in a pressure cooker where people were already just scared for their lives.
Well, you know what this is really highlighted to me is that we will never not have a church, whatever your church is, whether it's you go to a Christian church in the most traditional sense of thinking of it, or your church is wokeism, or your church is whatever idea. That's the thing with our political movements now, is they're basically people's political identities today are pretty much entwined with their sense of morality. And that is why when people hear the term liberal or conservative, they think in their head, if they're not that thing, they imagine the other thing being their enemy, that someone who morally opposes what their sense of morality and ethics is.
Because everybody who's speaking for the left or the right, more or less, on a big platform, that's what they're saying.
Which is why you got to go middle, third party, baby.
Well, it's not. It's like we do. That's why you need a no bullshit party. It shouldn't be our government. And I told you that there's a lot of libertarian points of view that I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Because the reason we're also in this mess is the government's like, we're not going to be super involved, but also we're going to be here all of the time watching you doing everything and, determining every move you make.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's why I think I said this last week too, where I was like, you know, there's this interesting thing because a lot of spiritual healers are like, don't read the news. Like, it's all of like earthly problems. It's bullshit. And I'm like, sure. But also, I live on planet Earth, and this is the planet that I live on. And to me, to really be able to teach and help people bring to their awareness the separation of what's being projected and the reality of what's happening. The space is this far. I mean, there's what you're if all you do is listen to commentators, of course you're going to be riled up. Of course you're going to be living in fear. Of course you're going to be angry at other people because that's what they're projecting to you. Go out, talk to other people, or don't. But like, if you're really wanting to see and understand what's going on in the world, and you're feeling super, you know, kind of stuck underneath this brick building that fell on top of you, and it's hard to get out from under, go and talk to people.
So, on that note, should we? I know we're at an hour. Can we do a couple more minutes, Scott? You don't have to run. Yeah, we're gonna do a little long today, guys. But I want to segue that. So I agree with that's a great point. I want to, guys. We might do a midweek surprise bonus episode, audio only, like we did last time. What do you think, Ray? Should we do it?
Sure. I got a busy week, but I think I can fit you in.
But okay, so let's wrap it up on the Biden stimulus bill. Okay. What's wrong?
No, I just wrap it up on the the Biden stimulus
So
bill. How much time you got?
I know I've I guess I am a liberal. You know what? I'm coming out. I'm libertarian. I'm unveiling it today.
I don't. I'm like, I don't know why suddenly
This is
Mr. Opinion's like, don't label me though.
well, no. It's for two reasons. One is because I have an aversion to locking yourself into, because ultimately all I really care about are things that seem like they make sense and they're good for everybody, right? Like I had a great conversation on my solo podcast. Let me be clear with my buddy Ricky. We talked about Medicare for All, which is a very left socialist progressive idea, but I'm open to idea. Like I'm not married to
So even on that, let me be clear. Let me be clear. It's not. In the media, that's actually something that would be helpful for everyone to have access to Medicare. That's something that we should all have.
Right.
In the media, in order to make sure it doesn't happen, if we deem it a socialist thing,
Right.
if we deem it as left, if we deem it as too progressive, then we've already made it one side. Rather than just calling it universal health care, let's figure out how we can do this thing. Right. Then you're creating neutrality.
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
I know, but I'm just saying
sure,
that's a perfect example, again, of when we label something one way or the other, then we've already have an emotional response to it.
So, yes, that's a whole other angle, but the quickest way to...
Okay, whoa, you don't have to get upset.
Not upset.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So, like, those are things I would love to talk about. I have quite a bit of skepticism around Medicare for All working, but I think on an ethical level, it's a great idea. We should talk about it and come up with solutions. I'm simply saying it is a social. The word socialism is very complicated, but it is socialist in the sense that Medicare for All effectively means that the government provides Medicare for everyone versus that the government has no involvement in healthcare and it's all free market, which is the libertarian angle. Now, libertarians, and again, I hesitate to say I'm a libertarian, and I only say that because people...
I thought we were going to talk about the stimulus bill. Are we going there or no?
Yes, we will. Now, this in a second, because people love to be like, oh, well, answer all the questions I have about this thing. It's like, I'm not an expert. I'm working on it. I'm really trying to become one because I like this. So
you're trying to become an expert?
On libertarianism.
Okay.
Maybe I'll get involved in the party one day. I don't know. Anyway, so...
Scotty Young and I both go... Oh.
Okay, so, but the reason I have moved away from the Democratic Party and what liberal has become in this day and age is a lot of it is real, and this relates to the stimulus bill. If there's a problem, give the government more control over it, throw money at it, it'll fix itself. And that's effectively what this stimulus bill does. So it gives billions of dollars to schools all over the country, including schools that have been closed the whole year, and there's like upping funding. So even here in California, where the Los Angeles Unified School District is pushing harder than almost any other union in the country to keep schools closed, basically their argument is that until every single teacher, and some of them even say until every single teacher and student is vaccinated, it's not safe to teach again. That's a separate argument, however you feel, that's what they're pushing for. Even so, they're getting extra funding from the stimulus bill, even though the schools aren't even in operation. And there's a lot of things like that where they're, dumping fund. It's very vague, but like $25 billion going into like vaccination protocols and things like that. In the simplest way, and this is, I'm quoting a conservative who I follow, Dan Crenshaw, who's he's in Congress. I don't know if he's a senator or a representative, but either way.
A name like Crenshaw, you got to be a senator.
Yeah, but he's a pretty big. He's been on Rogan's podcast and a few other ones. He's a pretty big media figure. And the way he broke it down, and I know it's up for debate, I'm just using his reference, is that effectively this costs the average taxpayer around $5,500 a year. Now we're getting back $1,400 a year, but you're spending, or it's costing you rather much more than that.
Well, I want to say this though: the original stimulus bill also cost American taxpayers money, but that went to private entities. So at least in theory, this one is going towards government issued things so that all of us would have access to and or in theory would reap the benefits of these things. So public schools, roads, etc. All these. I have not read through the whole thing, so don't at me.
Nobody has it. 600 pages.
Yeah, exactly. The people who wrote it, they're like, I don't know, just somewhere in there, just put the screenplay to Ferris Bueller's, just like in page 345 or something. But I'm just pointing that out. I'm not saying that's wrong. I mean, the other thing with taxes is it's like, to me, the debate around taxes is like the Dr. Seuss book, Cat in the Hat, where the whole time he's just taking the stain, where it's like it's on his clothes, and then he rubs it on the curtain, and now the stain's on the curtain, and now they take it and they put it on a bathrobe. That's all taxes.
Dude, that is the best way to explain our tax policy in this country.
Dude, it's so true, because it's like then the only person who's saying that isn't fair, it depends on, okay, well, whose garment is the stain on? So,
This is what it
So that's the only reason I say it's like it's just apples and oranges.
Sure.
So it's not, I think it's important for all of us to be aware, because I think there's always certainly a slightly better choice. But if you're upset that your taxes are being raised or where your tax money's going, you're always going to be upset. Two things, right? Death and taxes.
But see,
that's
what I think, and this is another thing why it's drawn me way back into being a libertarian, is that there's this misconception coming from a lot on the left that if you're against taxes, it's because you're greedy, you don't care about the poor, you don't want to help, you want to keep all your money for yourself, you cheat, et cetera, et cetera. That is not the case. The problem is that this mentality that you just give the government your tax dollars and it's used appropriately, which we've seen over and over and over again. That is not the case. And every maybe not every, but almost every institution that the government runs makes it worse. There's so few examples of the government took control of something and made it better. And
of course. I mean, I 100% agree with that.
I mean, look at the DMV. It's like the worst organization on the planet. Why? There's no competition. There's no incentive to improve. You have to use it. There's no infrastructure to make it better. Obviously, the free market has problems, but this idea that like, oh, the government will fix it. What?
Who is actually thinking that the government will fix anything? I want to meet that person.
That's a leftist mentality that if the right people, that's what it is. If the right people
First of all, don't come at me like that. I do not appreciate that. That's not what you don't even know what I was going to say. So I need you to calm down.
Scott, can you intervene here?
I'm saying
You guys are on your own.
I'm saying that I know, like in the media that might be, but I don't actually know of living, breathing liberals that are like, give it to the government, like they'll fix it. Or at this point, those people are idiots, because we saw that they thought that Biden was going to stick by all the things that he said he was going to do, and he didn't do any of them, which was why from the very beginning, I kind of felt guilty or like a little bit of shame that I wasn't like, propping up Biden and Kamala like, woo, because I'm like, y'all, it's going to be business as usual. Everything's going to stay the same. Y'all need to calm down, okay? I mean, it's not Trump, and I'm grateful for that. I don't have to listen to that rhetoric. But to think that these people are going to come in and do the things that they say they're going to do, you're full of it. It doesn't exist in politics at that level. It just doesn't, because it's not about servicing what is best for us. It's not. It is so inundated with like, who pays out to private companies? What are shell companies that pay into, like, it is a weave and a web of bullshit that doesn't actually, there's nothing that's really about helping us. Let me say one more thing and then I'll let you go on, which is, I just lost it. Go ahead.
So, right. This is a problem we talk about at length all the time. We know this. What's the answer to that problem?
Oh, wait, I didn't know what I was going to say.
Okay.
I agree with you where it's like, I think to say that just because conservatives don't want to pay taxes, that they're greedy, I think that's bullshit. I think it's a fake argument. I think it's also, it's pulling focus from the argument, which is billionaires and people who make over a certain amount of money should be taxed the same way if you're making $30,000.
Yeah.
If you're taxed based off of how much you make, there should be no, like, that to me is the only thing I have with taxes,
Right.
which is equal taxation, essentially.
Sure.
Let me finish. I'm just saying that, like, I think the narrative around who wants to or not pay taxes or if they care about other people is dilutes that main argument, which really should be if taxes are, we're all essentially, we're all accessing these resources the same, then everybody should be taxed the same.
Right. So, and another reason why I have so much aversion to our, I'm not opposed to the concept of taxes the way it's supposed to be allocated, but I am very opposed to it in the way we have it in this country today. And a great example is like,
Dude, guys got to watch John Adams. I feel like we're just sitting back there from the very beginning.
Well, here's why it's just hypocritical bullshit, right? You and I, as individuals and as business owners, we own our own production company, Skewed Orbit. Follow us, support us, thank you. We have to show every single penny to a T of what we spent, what we write off, how we spent that money, and submit it to the IRS and hope that they say, oh, this is fair. We've decided you paid your taxes appropriately. Do we know how the IRS allocates our tax dollars? No. We should be able, and our good friend Kevin Dalton and I talked about this, who is running for mayor for LA. I fully endorse him. He's going to be great. I hope he wins. We'll see. He and I talked about this, and he's like, and he's just going to be mayor of LA, hopefully. But his idea was like, we should all, as American citizens and taxpayers, be able to log in and see the IRS website live and see minute by minute where that money is going, where it's being spent. Like, if they can audit us, why can't we audit them? We control this country. We, the American people, we're paying the fucking bill, and then we're supposed to just sit back and be like, oh, I guess they're going to do a good job, because they've just made. And what do? They pin people. They pin the hillbilly white, coal miner against some poor black dude in Brooklyn and think that they're enemies. And they do it over, and we always fucking fall for it. We take the bait every time.
It's emotionality. Look how emotional you are right now talking about it. It's emotionality. And so that's why, again, I want to continue to bring emotions to people's awareness, because then you can't let people use it against you.
That's a good point.
It's manipulation.
You're going to save this country, LaForce.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, listen, no bullshit party, man. Get on board. That's going to be my merch.
All right, we do have to wrap this up soon. We're already 50.
So anyway, all we're getting, what, is this measly, or some people, because originally, right, they were like, oh, we're going to raise it to $75,000 if you make less than $75,000, and everybody was going to get a $2,000 check.
Right.
Now they bumped it back down to $50,000, and they're only giving $1,400.
So it's $1,400 if, as a single filer, you make, I believe it's $75K or less.
Oh, they did keep it at $75K.
Or joint, you if you make less than $150, if we filed together.
I do just have to say one more time. The fact that we're even debating about the government who fucked up COVID, okay? I understand that it's a disease, a virus, and that, humans cannot control it. That's what I've talked about, again, from the very beginning, that we tried to control a thing that was uncontrollable, and that shows, the flaw of human ego, right? This was a self-fulfilling prophecy. But they did a real Rick job of a boner job. You know what I mean? They just really screwed the pooch on this one. And the fact that we had to have a debate this long about if Americans should receive $2,000 each to me is what's wrong with America. If you mean to tell me where it's like, well, we don't know where that money's going to come from, or do these people need this money, or, whatever. It's like, I mean, because I know my dad had some issue because he had mentioned it to us. Remember, he was here helping us build something, and he ended up buying a few more of the materials for me, just as a gift. And he was like, it's because the government gave me that extra. I think they got the $600 or whatever that went out to everybody. And he was like, they didn't need to give that to me. I didn't need it. And I'm like, that's great that you're in a position that you didn't need it. But there's a lot of folks who, even making the amount of money that my dad, my dad also doesn't have any dependents anymore, things like that. But it's like, there are a lot of folks who did need it. Or the other reason you received it is to put it back into the economy so that we don't completely fumble. Right? So I don't know. I guess I just go back to, it's just another in plain sight that things do not make sense.
Right.
And that's what I think you and I definitely agree on, of always wanting to bring to people's, like, there are not goblins that are hiding in closets.
Yep.
All of the chaos and, toxic bullshit around the way our government is run. And also it's like, you guys want to fuck things up and I got to participate. Okay. But you want to come at me and try to, emotionally manipulate me and turn me against other people. And there's families that are torn apart because of all of these things. And I guarantee you, if the news was not what it is, and these people were having to sit down around a table and have a conversation, probably be some upsets. Somebody might walk away, but families would stay intact.
But I mean, that's just been, I was going to respond. There's so much we could say. We're going to do a midweek episode, maybe
All right.
Wednesday or Thursday.
All right.
Audio only. Well, this is good. We had a lot of, fiery conversation. If you have HBO, go watch John Adams, because it's, we love talking about it, and it was a great show. Scott, any thoughts on this episode?
You guys rock.
All right.
Guys, happy International Women's Day. Happy birthday, Mom.
Support women in your life,
And
whether they're national or international.
Yeah, national or international, your pick. Buy some Girl Scout cookies.
If you do watch Marriage or Mortgage and you have opinions, let us. We're not going to watch it, but I am curious if you have any thoughts. If you watch the show,
I think we should have our correspondent Lizzie Weissman, because she would watch that.
I'll hit her up. Yeah, I'll talk to her, see what she
She can
thinks.
be our reality show correspondent.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. All right, you guys have a wonderful week. Be kind to each other. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.